right, some new jobs numbers out this morning showing first-time unemployment claims falling to the lowest we've seen since January. Continuing claims, however, continue. There simply is not work for so many people in this country. So many of the jobs that were created are jobs that aren't going to come back, jobs that are tied to the real estate market or real estate finance, unlike past recessions where, again, jobs would be lost in manufacturing and then manufacturing would come back and jobs would be recreated. That is not the situation we find ourselves in, and this week's numbers little consolation to the more than 15 million Americans out of work right now. The desperation that is out there on full display in the city of Detroit, where the unemployment rate is now approaching 30%. Take a look at the lines. 35,000 people waiting for hours in lines that extended multiple blocks. Yes, there was violence. Scuffles did break out. These people here seeking applications for government stimulus money to help them pay their mortgage and utility bills. But there's only enough money to pay about 3,500 of those 35,000 people who are in that line. Again, people struggling to find work as a bill to extend jobless benefits has stalled in the Senate. Nearly 1.5 million people will run out of benefits by the end of the year if Congress does not extend those benefits. Think about the layoffs that came as a result of the economic crisis last year. And the reality now, as we move into year 2 and year 3, of many of those people still not being able to find meaningful employment. The Senate Banking Committee Chairman Christopher Dodd saying that he wants a 6-month extension of the $8,000 first-time homebuyers tax credit. That credit also set to expire on December 1st. So while we watch the markets resume function, and we watch our economy stabilize from the brink, and we look with alarm at the amount of money that was deployed. Again, $23 trillion. There are those who believe that maybe $4 or $5 trillion of that all in we may never see again. Peter Morici, an economist, and professor at the University of Maryland and Washington Post blogger and reporter, Ezra Klein, with us here. I wrote a piece for the Huffington Post, Peter, called "The Cost of Corporate Communism," which basically spoke to supporting failed, outdated, weak, lazy businesses that use the control of government to try to perpetuate their business as opposed to adapting new technology and moving the economy forward. How big is the risk of joblessness in this country if we are not able to release innovation through all industries in this country, including those that currently defend themselves through, again, what I call corporate communism and government control?
Well, corporate welfare really is an important factor here. I mean, General Motors has been saved, but so many other businesses around the country continue to languish because they don't have access to capital. I mean, regional banks simply don't have money to lend because the TARP did not do what it was supposed to do. It handed out welfare on Wall Street along with the Fed programs without creating a bad bank to sweep the bad assets off the books of regional banks. Some of that would be welfare, but some of those banks were innocent victims of just a downturn in the economy. More broadly, though, we've had a huge and growing trade deficit, which is responsible for the loss of 5 million manufacturing jobs since 2001. I'd suggest that about half of that shouldn't have happened. It's as a consequence of China's undervalued currency, which it essentially perpetuates, and its subsidized exports that President Obama promised to do something about during the campaign, but has simply forgotten since he has come to office.
Well, Professor, I think as we are unfortunately shown the pictures like the ones we saw from Detroit, or I'll think back to the lines for health care that we saw in Los Angeles just a few weeks ago. And as we hear the rosy narrative of the resurrection of the corporate profit machine and still watch the decline in almost every other economic measure, if that is not evidence of a system that is broken and dysfunctional, I do not know what is. If you were to look at where the rules need to be changed so that making money is not made by risk shedding to the taxpayer, which in my book is stealing, that making money is not made by figuring out ways to pick somebody else off, but making money is made by creating value from me to you, from me to Ezra. That is what capitalism is, last I checked, and as far as I can tell has been almost completely corrupted at this point. What people don't understand is the risk to the country of doing nothing. In brief, if we do not do anything about this, forget whether there's 10 solutions, 10 different ways at it. If we do not restore rules-based capitalism where investors and innovators, again, compete to be the best, workers support them, and we do not have a government that obliterates those who would vampire the system either by exploiting the government or some other loophole, what is the risk to this country of doing nothing about that?
It's third century Rome. It's grain and circuses. The line in Detroit, people lining up basically for money because there is no work and the value of their homes is zero. The risk to the American civilization at this point is enormous. The incentives aren't right in the economy for people to grow productive businesses that make products that people want to buy here and around the world. Instead, American companies can make money very well investing abroad. Look at somebody like Caterpillar. They make their money investing in China, in a communist, in a country with authoritarian rule, and they don't really give a tinker's darn about what happens here. And you have that over and over again. General Motors is going to make its profits abroad, barely limp along here. It makes 2/3 of its cars abroad. And if you look at for the reasons for the stock market rally, it's because of 3% growth globally, not because of any growth in the United States. So American companies are going to do well abroad, and those people connected to them and the financiers are going to do well, and the rest of us are going to be damned.